The accused gunman behind the Pittsburgh synagogue massacre appeared in court today. Robert Bowers is facing murder and hate crime charges for the deaths of 11 people during Jewish services on Saturday. Federal prosecutors are considering seeking the death penalty. CBS News correspondent David Begnaud was in the courthouse and joins me now. David, if you would describe for us the scene in the room and the suspect's demeanor.
Sure, but just before that, let me tell you regarding the press briefing you mentioned, we're waiting to see if the White House announces that the president is going to come here potentially tomorrow, maybe on Wednesday. So we'll watch for that as soon as it starts. All right, so we just walked out. In fact, as I turn around now, there are cameras right outside the courthouse. The suspect was taken away roughly 10 minutes ago, maybe 12 minutes ago at this point, under very heavy security. I noted a caravan, a procession, if you will, of about 5 vehicles. The suspect was in a Chevy Tahoe, which was in the middle of the motorcade. At the back of it, there were what looked to be SWAT officers, one driving, one in the passenger seat. And the guy in the passenger seat, from what I could tell, had an assault rifle pointed down, but literally in his lap. And there were, at the 3 traffic lights past the courthouse, there were police officers with the lights on, ready to stop traffic if need be. So he arrived and departed under very heavy security. The court hearing, as is customary in federal court, started right on time. It was procedural and went off without any hitches. The suspect said nothing in court other than yes several times to the judge's questions. So about 5 minutes before the judge walked out, the suspect came in a wheelchair. He was wearing a blue long-sleeve shirt, and I noticed that he appeared curious. He kind of scanned the courtroom. It was filled with media and legal professionals, weren't many empty seats, and he was alert, right? Again, we were anticipating that he might look bad. I mean, the guy was shot. He was in the hospital. We were told there was a chance, in fact, he wasn't going to be in the courtroom today because of his injuries. But he didn't appear to be someone who had just been shot and gone through any kind of critical care, if you will. He was overweight, as I noted, and he was handcuffed. And I couldn't tell if he had shackles around his feet, but what happened is they pulled him right up to the table, and there were about 5 U.S. Marshals standing around him. And from what I could tell, they shackled his feet from the wheelchair to the actual wheelchair when they put him in his spot. There were 2 defense attorneys who were at the side of him. The judge came in. He read the counts before him. He said, "Do you understand the charges?" Man said yes. He then asked him if, he said, "I saw you signed a document basically saying that you can't afford an attorney. Do you want me to provide one to you?" Yes. Taxpayers, by the way, will pay for that. And then the 2 defense attorneys sitting with him said, "Hey, Judge, listen, the public defender's office is going to have to appoint a team. We're just here temporarily for this hearing." This was not an arraignment where someone would be asked to enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. This is simply a formal reading of the charges, which is a part of due process, which he is entitled to have. After that, the judge said, "Okay, boom, we're adjourned." And then they let him out of court. It lasted literally less than 10 minutes. I mean, it was formal, it was brief, and that's it.
So we have no more information as to whether prosecutors plan to seek the death penalty then in this case?
No. He's eligible for the death penalty. You could argue all likelihood may point to that, but no, they have not made any formal decision as to that yet. It'll be interesting to see if the White House comes out and addresses it, or the president, potentially sends out a tweet, but we have no clear direction as of now.
So, David, what else do we know about Bowers's past? Does he have a history there in Pittsburgh?
Well, look, good question. In fact, I was talking to some of my colleagues today, and I said, what do we know about him? Where's his mom? Does he have an ex-wife? Does he have a girlfriend? Does he have siblings somewhere? No one appears to have popped up, come out of the woodworks, if you will. Granted, maybe they don't want to talk about it. But from what we know, he's a long-haul truck driver. That's according to neighbors. Also, the Attorney General here in Pennsylvania confirmed that. One of the guys who lived by him said, "I didn't know much about him at all. I saw him, but kind of kept to himself. Really was an unassuming guy who really didn't stand out in person." Now, of course, we've seen from some of his social media posts that he ranted against Jewish people. I mean, listen, there was the guy who's the president, the doctor of the Allegheny General Hospital, who said that the suspect was ranting that he wanted to kill Jews, not only in the synagogue, according to police, but the hospital president said he was ranting about it in the ambulance, and then after he got to the hospital. And one of the nurses who treated the suspect is Jewish.
You're kidding. So he didn't stop ranting until he got to the hospital. That it's so hard to comprehend.
Continue to at the hospital.
It's just, it's so difficult to wrap your mind around the thought process that this person must have been going through, and also the kind of community that he found online, and whether that community in any way encouraged him to undertake this heinous act.
You know, it's interesting hearing you talk about the thought process. You know, sadly, there are too many of these, and we cover too many of them. And so often when I go to court, I'm always curious as to the demeanor, right? That's why I wanted to be in the courtroom. I mean, you literally assess everything that you can about the person. And sometimes people who commit crimes like this will come out and, they look strung out in court, or they look aloof or not there, or possibly mentally ill. This guy looked none of that. I mean, he was plugged in, he was alert, he came in, he kind of looked around, he goes, so I'm here, pulled him up to it was chilling. It seemed kind of unusual, right? Yeah. Bingo, kind of chilling to see him. So, okay, I'm here, let's do it.
That's almost more upsetting than hearing that he perhaps was out of it or strung out. It's almost more upsetting to think that this was a decision that he made in his right mind.
Yeah, I think, Tanya, anybody watching this, you can't imagine how anybody would ever conceive of doing this, right? And when the person seems in their right mind and clear when they appear, to your point, it is in fact chilling. Now listen, no cameras, by the way, were allowed in federal court. So what you're going to see later on CBSN and tonight on the CBS Evening News are courtroom sketches that we have, paid professionals who were sitting there and drawing the best as they could. But there are no cameras, no audio that is allowed in federal court.
Right. David Begnaud, thank you so much for your reporting on this.
You bet.